Mustafa John. Thank you for taking us to places unseen. Mustafa John, exploring the world, living the dream.
Hello everyone, I am Mustafa John. Welcome to John Studio. This is the 28th episode of the Thailand series. Today, Ikram and I woke up early in the morning, ready to explore Bangkok. Meanwhile, Majid and Mahmood were still fast asleep in the hostel. We tried our best to wake them up, but they wouldn't budge no matter what we did. After a few failed attempts, Ikram and I decided to let them rest and go for a walk instead. Our hostel is conveniently located near the 14 October 73rd Memorial, so we plan to visit it. The memorial is only a 10-minute walk from where we're staying, making it an easy choice. We quickly decided on our plan and began walking toward the memorial. The streets of Bangkok were already alive with energy, even early in the morning. Along the way, we enjoyed the fresh air and admired the surrounding neighborhood. The walk was short but filled with interesting sights and sounds that added to the charm of the day. We passed by a few local shops, and the aroma of freshly cooked food was tempting. The bustling city life made the morning walk even more exciting for us. As we walked, we couldn't help but appreciate the vibrant culture all around us. The route to the memorial was simple, and we followed it without any trouble. Ikram and I chatted about the history of the 14 October 73rd Memorial and its significance. The idea of visiting such an important landmark was exciting and felt meaningful. We noticed a few other tourists heading in the same direction as us. The weather was pleasant, which made the short walk even more enjoyable. As we approached the memorial, its serene ambiance came into view. We were excited to explore the memorial and learn more about its historical importance. Before reaching there, I would like to share the history of the 14 October 73 Memorial. The popular uprising of 14 October 1973, Day of Great Sorrow, was a watershed event in Thailand's history. The uprising resulted in the end of the ruling military dictatorship of anti-communist Thanom Kittikachorn and altered the Thai political system. Notably, it highlighted the growing influence of Thai university students in politics. Student activism in Thailand grew during the 1950s, as many students became inspired by leftist ideology to mobilize and organize demonstrations and rallies against the pro-American policies of the ruling government. The rise of university students as a political force was also due to the increase in absolute numbers of university students. From 1961 to 1972, the number of university students increased from 15,000 to 150,000, while the number of universities increased from 5 to 17. Prior to 1968, student activity was confined to demonstrations of loyalty rather than demands for change or criticism of the political system. The death of Syed in December 1963 changed things as the government under Thanom was more tolerant of students and intellectuals. The publication of the Social Science Review in the 1960s was credited as being responsible for restarting intellectual thinking and debate in Thai politics. Discussion groups sprang up at major universities which developed into organized and important independent groups, e.g., the Safa Nadom and Sethatham and the Sotis group. These independent groups in turn produced their own writings, and the Social Science Review began to publish articles from them. Some of the writings were critical of the government. These groups also started to hold clandestine political seminars, which encouraged students to be analytical and critical. The student discussion groups were in many important ways different from the student unions already present on campus. They were radical and looked for new ways of interpreting Thai society and politics, often with a leftist slant. They did not organize themselves the same way the official student unions were run, i.e., on a hierarchical and politically conservative basis. These groups from different universities were able to transcend inter-university rivalry and build up contacts among themselves. 10 development programs based on those of the United States Peace Corps took students from various campuses to work in rural areas during their vacations and forced them to recognize the problems in the countryside. The programs also served to show the students how inadequate their university training had been, as they were not able to use any of their knowledge to improve the conditions which the majority of the rural population faced. In November 1972, the NSCT began a campaign to boycott Japanese goods. This was a strategic move as it avoided a direct attack on the Thailand government, but served to show the public the students' intentions, as well as handing out leaflets in shopping centers, proclaiming an anti-Japanese goods week, and presenting a 10-point economic plan to Thailand. The NSCT also organized a protest march. 137. It was difficult for the Thailand government to crack down on the NSCT, despite the ban on other political parties, as the NSCT played up nationalistic sentiment. 145 on 6 October. Thirayuth Bunmi and 10 other political activists were arrested for distributing leaflets in crowded places in Bangkok, such as Bang Lampu, Siam Square and Pratunam, urging support for an early drafting of the Constitution. The ruling. Government used a decree banning gatherings of more than 5 people to arrest them. The other arrestees were Thirayuth, Prapansak Kamalpech, Boonsong Chalathorn, Bandit Heng Nilrat, Visa Kanthap, Thanya Chunkathatharn, Thawi Muntikorn, Montri Jueng Sirinarak, Noporn Suwan Panich, Preeti Boonsu, and Chaiwat Suravichai. They were taken to police headquarters and their homes were searched. On 7 October, Kongkiat Kongka, accused of being a member of a group advocating early promulgation of the permanent constitution, was also arrested. 5971, on 8 October, the 12 arrestees were denied bail and were also accused by Deputy Prime Minister Professor Charusathian of being linked to a plot to overthrow the government. 59-71, on 9 October, more than 2,000 students from Thammasat University demonstrated at an anti-government rally. After the rally, the students held an all-night vigil, at which they were joined by students from Chulalongkorn University and several teacher training colleges. Kai Sayeng Suksai, a former member of parliament, was also arrested, bringing the total number of those in custody to 13. On 10 October, rallies in Bangkok swelled as more students from other student organizations joined the protests. The government prepared to react by quietly setting up a crisis control center with Professor Charusathian as its director. On 11 October, Professor agreed to meet with the students, who demanded the release of the 13 prisoners. He refused to meet their demands. By this time, the rally had moved to the grounds of Thammasat University to accommodate its growing size, with the number of protesters now reaching 50,000. On 12 October, the government announced that it would release the 13 prisoners on bail, but the students rejected the offer, stating that they would only accept the unconditional release of the prisoners. Money was contributed by members of the public to support the protest. On 13 October, the crowd, which had swelled to more than 400,000, including many members of the public, marched to Democracy Monument to demand the release of the prisoners. The government quickly agreed to the demands and promised that the UI's permanent constitution would be in place by October 1974. With their demands met, the students agreed to go back to their universities. About 200,000 students refused to disband, however, and their leader, Seksan Prasertkul, decided to lead them to the palace to seek advice from King Bhumibol. On 14th October, the students reached the palace and were met by the king's representative, who said that Bhumibol requested that the students disband. The students agreed to do so, and the assistant director of the police ordered barricades placed to disperse the students in an orderly single direction. The large size of the crowd meant that many were not able to leave, but the police refused their request for another exit, which resulted in resentment among the students. It is not clear how it happened, but reports soon were heard about violence against the students as the crowd became restive. Early in the morning, bombs exploded near the royal palace and the police began attacking the students. By late morning, there were acts of vandalism and violence by both sides as the situation spun out of control. The government brought in tanks, helicopters, and infantrymen to support the police. 77 deaths and 857 injuries resulted, and many buildings near Ratchadamnoan Avenue were set on fire. The number of demonstrators quickly grew to more than 500,000, as other students and their sympathizers rallied to their defense. The soldiers finally withdrew in the evening, and about 1915 the king announced on television and radio that Thanom's military government had resigned. Violence continued on 15th October around the police headquarters, with students demanding that Thanom be removed as head of the armed forces. Only when it was announced that Thanom Prophas and Thanom's son, Colonel Narong Kitakachorn, who was married to Prophas's daughter, had fled the country did calm return to Bangkok. The end had come as quickly and unexpectedly as the violence had begun. The uprising unleashed a range of political forces not seen in Thailand before, and the country gradually became more polarized. In the immediate aftermath of the uprising, there was a popular perception of promise and euphoria. However, things took a turn for the worse, as democracy took the blame for the consequences of the past dictatorships. There were a myriad of reasons for the widespread support for the students. For a majority of the people, the military government was a main reason to support the students because it failed to curb inflation and prevent rice shortages. Benedict Anderson, a Southeast Asia scholar, has argued that despite the power and credibility they lent to the movement, the Thai middle class were far less concerned about the students' goals than they were dissatisfied with social and economic changes affecting their lives. 2/12/216. In its idealism, the NSCT decided to use the donations they had gathered during October 1973 to educate villagers about democracy and its processes. The democracy propagation program began in earnest over the few months after the new regime was installed, and democracy emissaries were sent to all 580 districts in Thailand. This lasted till 1974, when the realities of the difference in culture, resistance, and inertia forced the program to a halt. 2/18/219. Student dissidents continued to emerge with grievances ranging from educational reform to Thailand's trade imbalance with Japan to the CIA's influence over the Thai military establishment. Strikes and sit-ins began in November 1973 and disrupted both businesses and private lives. The atmosphere of chaos continued as reports streamed from the northeast about the country's communist insurgency. 222/224. The lack of strong leadership in the interim government meant there was little break from the past. Even under the Yao new constitution and after the general elections, the deputies approached their legislative duties with caution, voting conservatively and rejecting any legislation that might threaten the entrenched and wealthy upper class. Furthermore, the new civilian leadership feared offending the military and would not curb the privileges of powerful officers. 230. In the years after the uprising, riots and strikes took place with higher frequency, and insurgency in the hills seemed commonplace while taxes rose. Electric power was intermittent and Bangkok at night was sometimes darkened. This was made worse as the international situation in Indochina deteriorated. Vietnam, Laos, and Cambodia all fell to communist forces in 1975, and the threat of communist groups in neighboring countries led to panic among the Thai people. The presence of communist regimes on Thai borders, the abolition of the 600-year-old Lao monarchy, and the arrival of a flood of refugees from Laos and Cambodia swung public opinion in Thailand to the right, resulting in conservatives gaining far more support in the 1976 elections than they had the previous year. This right-wing shift would culminate in the 6 October 1976 massacre of student protesters at Thammasat University, which marked the end of the democratic period